Welcome everyone to lesson 114. Today we're going to do Newton's Revenge. Now we've made some modifications to help those of you at home solve this problem. So let's go ahead and talk about this problem. By the way, you have your math notebook open to problem 114, Newton's Revenge, 124 and 125. Have you heard about Newton's Revenge, the new roller coaster? This is where you say no. It's so big, fast, and scary that rumors about it are already spreading. Some people are worried about the tunnel that thrills riders with its low ceiling. And so you can kind of see in your math notebook, there's a picture of the car zooming underneath this tunnel, and people are holding onto the straps, but they're worried about that tunnel. The closest the ceiling of the tunnel ever comes to the seat of the roller coaster is 200 centimeters. In your notebook, underline that. That's an important piece of information. Although no accidents have been reported yet, it is said that very tall riders have stopped riding the roller coaster. Now, I am not a very tall rider. I'm 6 foot. I am average, okay? And so what we need to think about are the very tall people in this world. So here's our task, our job, our goal, our problem in front of us. Consider how you could determine whether the tunnel is actually safe. Key word, actually safe, using data for any rider. That is our goal. Today we need to determine whether it is actually safe for any rider. Underline that, please, no matter how tall. Discuss the questions below with your team. Be ready to share your responses with the rest of the class. Obviously, you're at home, and you are not having a discussion. It's kind of a one-way conversation with Mr. McCoy, the computer. So here we go. What is the problem about? Well, this problem is about a roller coaster. This problem is about whether it's actually safe. Okay? There's lots of real-world examples of that right now, right? Okay, the roller coaster. Is it actually safe? What is it asking us to do? Well, that's why we went ahead and this is what we're doing. Is it actually safe for any rider? That's our task. Anytime you are reading mathematics problems, you need to be able to go through all the language arts paragraphs and determine, okay, what's my goal? What am I doing here? Okay? What information can help you answer this question? Well, this one. Is that the only piece of information? Well, we have to also think bigger than that, because what is the relationship here between very tall riders? Notice it said, where is it? Where is it? Very tall riders have stopped. Why would very tall people stop riding this ride? Oh. Maybe the very tall people, maybe when they lift their hands up, maybe they're a little bit concerned about their hands getting a little too close to that tunnel. How can you get this information? Because I don't have any very tall people around, right? All I have are 8th graders and me. What are we going to do? Well, let's go ahead and keep going. Now, in class, one of the things that we did is we have rulers, yardsticks, actually meter sticks, and we went ahead and measured ourselves. Now, you probably don't have that at home, and so I want you to record this. Mr. McCoy, M squared, Mr. McCoy has a height of 182, and he has a reach of 141. You write that down. That is my data. Real data. Recorded it this morning, okay? Mr. McCoy, M squared, is a height of 182 and 141. We're going to need some of this data for tomorrow, but this is 114A. This is the first part. So what we have here is some actual student data, okay? This is some actual student data after we recorded this. You don't need to do anything yet with this graph, okay? This is just looking at the information. Let's go ahead and answer a couple questions about the data in front of us in our notebook. This is 126A. 126A. It says, are there any dots that you think show human error? Look at it. Are there any dots? That is, are there any dots that appear to be graphed incorrectly or that someone may have measured incorrectly? Explain why or why not. Look at the graph, pause the video, write your response. B. Is a person's reach related to his or her height? Okay, well let's make an observation here, okay? So if I make an observation, I am going to notice that someone who is short also has less reach, right? Less height, less reach. Notice that me, Mr. McCoy, I am taller and I also have more reach. And look at the data that is clustered in between. So here's what I want you to write for letter B. Yes. Okay. Yes, it is related. Yes, comma. Reach is related to height. Okay? Because we see the cluster form a trend. Okay, that's one of the words that we want to use. The cluster forms a trend. When I say cluster, I mean this stuff right in here. Okay. Letter C. Since a person's reach depends on his or her height, the reach is called the dependent quantity or variable, and the height the independent quantity. Examine the class graph. On which axis is the independent reach? Independent. So which axis is this? X, short and squatty. Y, nice and tall. So I want you to write the independent variable is on the X axis. I like to start with X. I know the problem started with Y, but the independent is the X axis, and the dependent is the Y axis. This is always true. The independent variable is always the cause, and the dependent variable is always the effect, the reaction, cause and effect, right? Independent and dependent variables, okay? Independent, it happens on itself, and the dependent reacts to what happens, okay? So let me restate that. The independent is on the x-axis, the dependent is on the y-axis. D, is there a trend in this data? Well, we said yes, there is a trend. We see the cluster. How can you generalize this trend? Well, let's see. As we go this way, height is increasing. So let's write, as height increases, what's happening to reach? Reach also increases. Okay? 127. Now in your notebooks, it simply says that this is discussion. So let's go ahead and look at this. 127. Everyone is complaining about how the teacher made the class graph. Jorge is confused about how the teacher decided to set up the graph. Why is it a one-quadrant graph instead of 4 quadrants? Remember, 4 quadrants include positives and negatives. Do we need negatives in this problem? Do we need a negative height and a negative reach? No, we don't need that. So we went ahead and focused on a one quadrant graph because we only have positives. Letter B, Lauren is annoyed with the x-axis. Why didn't the teacher just use numbers from the table she wanted? Why count by 20s? Why didn't I just use numbers over here? Well, you need to start at 0, and I didn't want to count by 1, so I thought 20s would be a good way to spread out the information, right? I thought it was okay, like you got to start at 0 and count by something. I don't want to count by these numbers, but I have to include some of the numbers, don't I? Letter C. Jose thinks the graph is too big. The dots are all mashed together. Why did the teacher begin both the x and y axis at 0? Anyone that short would never be allowed on the roller coaster. He's pointing out that, see this big blank section? Why do we need that? I think Jose's onto something. We don't need that. D. Sunita says the graph is too small. See how bunched together everything is? If we're supposed to be using this data to check if the roller coaster is really safe for tall people, the graph has to have room enough for tall people too. What's tall people? I stopped at 200. Why didn't I include more information? Well, it's just so hard to find the right sized graph. That's what we're going to learn about tomorrow, is what do we do to make the right sized graph. Thanks for tuning in to today's video. You are only responsible for recording 126, A, B, C, and D. Please make sure that you take some time and go ahead and work on problem 1-30 by graphing these points on the graph. That's a part of your homework. That's one thing that you need to be able to do today. The other thing that's a part of your homework is 131 is a box plot. Please make sure that you go to the glossary and look up box plot to get some additional help, or the internet will help you with that. But you have to start by writing the data of shoe size in order. So hopefully this video was helpful for you today. This was 114A. Tune in tomorrow and we'll finish up Newton's Revenge. See you tomorrow.